I'm Emily, and I've always felt like the odd one out in my family. From a young age, I realized I wasn't what my dad had hoped for. He had always dreamed of having a son, and when the doctor announced it's a girl, the disappointment on his face was unmistakable. That moment seemed to shape how he saw me for years to come. My older sister, Sophie, was the shining star of the family, brilliant, talented, and seemingly flawless in my parents' eyes. Meanwhile, I felt like I was just there. Our house was always buzzing with praise for Sophie's latest accomplishments. Did you hear Sophie won another science competition? Or, look at this amazing painting Sophie made? My achievements, on the other hand, barely got noticed. My school report cards earned a quick glance at best, and my crayon drawings usually ended up in the trash. Over time, I learned to rely on myself. I made my own lunches, handled my laundry, and figured out homework alone. It wasn't ideal, but it made me resilient. I knew no one else would step in to help, so I had to manage on my own. When I turned 14, something happened that completely changed the course of my life. One afternoon after school, I was starving. Since no one was around to make me a snack, I decided to try baking cookies. I found an old cookbook tucked away in the kitchen, followed a basic recipe, and to my surprise, they turned out pretty good. The next day, I brought some to school, and a classmate named Chloe tried one. Her eyes widened as she took a bite. "Emily, these are amazing. Did your mom make them?" she asked. I smiled, feeling a rare sense of pride. "No, I made them myself." Word spread quickly, and soon more kids were asking for cookies. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had discovered something I was genuinely good at, something that made people notice me. It was exhilarating. When I got home that evening, I was so excited to tell my parents. "Mom, Dad, guess what? I baked cookies, and everyone at school loved them." My mom barely looked up from her magazine. "That's nice, dear. Just don't forget to clean up the kitchen." Dad frowned and added, "Cookies? Emily, you should be focusing on your studies, not wasting time in the kitchen." My excitement dimmed, but I refused to let their indifference ruin this newfound joy. Over time, I threw myself into baking. While Sophie continued to shine academically and eventually got into an elite university, I found my passion in the kitchen. I spent weekends experimenting with recipes, cakes, pies, cookies, you name it. Neighbors started noticing, and before long, they were asking me to bake for them. I even started earning a little money on the side, turning my hobby into a small business. One day, our neighbor Mrs. Johnson tried one of my chocolate cakes and said, "Emily, this is incredible. You have a real gift. Have you ever thought about going to culinary school?" Her words filled me with hope. "Actually, I have," I replied shyly. "I'd love to go after high school." Her encouragement gave me courage, but when I shared my dream with my parents, their reactions were anything but supportive. My mom looked horrified. "Culinary school? That's just cooking," she said dismissively. Dad's response was even harsher. "Absolutely not. No daughter of mine is going to waste her life in a kitchen," he snapped, slamming his fist on the table. I tried to explain. "But Dad, I'm good at it. People love what I bake." "So what?" he shot back. "You think you can make a living baking cookies? Get real, Emily. That's not a career." Mom chimed in, "Emily, you need to think about your future. Look at Sophie, she's studying law. That's a real career." Their words crushed me, but I wasn't ready to give up on my dream. I kept baking whenever I could, even if it meant sneaking around to do it. At school events, I sold my treats, and the response was overwhelming. My best friend, Ethan, took a bite of one of my cupcakes and said, "Emily, these are the best cupcakes I've ever had. You should open your own bakery." His words planted a seed in my mind. But at home, my dream was a constant source of conflict. One day, Dad found a flyer for one of my bake sales. "What is this?" he demanded. "It's for school," I lied. "We're raising money for a new library." "Don't lie to me, Emily," he barked. "This baking nonsense stops now. You need to focus on your studies. If I catch you wasting time on this again, there will be consequences." "But Dad, I'm making good money," I argued. "Money?" he scoffed. "You think a few dollars from selling cupcakes is real money? Look at Sophie, she's earning a proper salary at her internship. That's what success looks like. His words stung, and when he threatened to cut off my college fund if I didn't stop baking, I felt like my dreams had been shattered. That night, I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I'd ever have the courage to follow my heart. Years later, I found myself in a prestigious business college, studying finance to appease my parents. My life revolved around numbers, spreadsheets, and corporate jargon. On paper, I was successful, but inside, I felt empty. Every time I walked past a bakery, the smell of freshly baked bread tugged at my heartstrings, reminding me of the dream I had given up. One evening, after a particularly draining day at work, I found my old recipe book at the back of a shelf. Its pages were worn and stained, but as I flipped through it, I felt a spark of joy. I decided to bake a batch of cupcakes, just for myself. The process was therapeutic, and for the first time in years, I felt alive. The next day, I brought the cupcakes to the office, and the response was immediate. "Emily, these are incredible. Where did you buy them?" my coworker Claire asked. I made them, I admitted, a little embarrassed. Soon, my coworkers were placing orders for birthday cakes and desserts. On weekends, I turned my tiny apartment into a mini bakery, filling it with the sweet aroma of vanilla and chocolate. Slowly but surely, I rediscovered my passion and started to dream again. For the first time in years, I felt like I was truly living. Then came a life-changing opportunity, my company's anniversary party. The director approached me with a warm smile. "Emily, I've heard you're quite the baker. How would you feel about making the cake for the party?" My heart raced. This was a huge chance, but also a significant risk. If the cake didn't turn out perfect, I'd embarrass myself in front of everyone. But I couldn't bring myself to say no. On the day of the party, I unveiled a massive cake adorned with the company's logo and delicate sugar flowers. When the director saw it, his face lit up. "This is amazing! Everyone, give it up for Emily, our accounting expert and master baker." The room erupted in applause. He leaned over and whispered, "You're wasted in accounting, Emily. This is clearly your true calling." His words stayed with me. As more cake orders rolled in, I realized I had a choice to make. I was juggling two full-time roles, accountant by day, baker by night. Something had to give. Late one sleepless night, surrounded by piles of cake orders, I made my decision. The next morning, I walked into the office and handed in my resignation. My supervisor was stunned. "Why?" "You're one of our best employees," she said, looking genuinely confused. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I found my true passion. I rented a small commercial kitchen and threw myself fully into my baking business. It was terrifying but exhilarating. Some nights, I stayed up filling orders. Other days, I doubted myself, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. But gradually, my bakery grew. I hired my first employee, then my second. Eventually, we moved to a larger space, and my cakes and pastries gained recognition across the city. Through all of this, I kept my success a secret from my parents. To them, I was still an accountant working hard in the corporate world. I promised myself I'd tell them the truth one day, but deep down, I was scared, afraid of their disappointment and rejection all over again. As my bakery expanded, I knew I needed to step up my game. I started focusing on modern marketing. I created social media pages and posted photos of my creations daily. I avoided showing myself, no selfies or personal pictures, just the cakes, cookies, and pastries. Despite my fears, the business flourished. I partnered with a local delivery service to reach more customers, launched a loyalty program, and even started offering online orders. Then came my big idea, Sweet Treat Saturdays. Once a month, we opened the bakery for a day of free samples. On the first event, I was a nervous wreck. What if no one shows up? I asked Julie, my assistant. Julie smirked. "Boss, have you tasted your own cupcakes? People will be lining up around the block." She was right. By noon, a line stretched down the street. Seeing people's faces light up as they tasted my treats brought me so much joy. It wasn't just about profit, it was about sharing something I loved. Our popularity exploded. Soon, We were catering high-profile events, supplying desserts to upscale restaurants, and even shipping signature cookies nationwide. With success came financial stability, more money than I ever imagined earning, especially from baking. My dad's dismissive comments about real money echoed in my mind, but now they felt laughable. Before long, I was earning more than Sophie's prestigious finance job. Even as my business thrived, I continued helping my parents financially, pretending it all came from my corporate career. When their roof needed repairs, I paid for it. When they mentioned wanting to visit Europe, I surprised them with plane tickets. "Emily, you shouldn't have," Mom said, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. Meanwhile, Sophie was living her own glamorous life. She still lived at home and spent her salary on designer clothes and high-tech gadgets. My parents adored her, constantly praising her achievements. "Did you hear about Sophie's promotion? Vice president at only 30, they'd gush." I'd smile politely. "That's amazing, Sophie. Congratulations." Inside, I knew my bakery's success far outpaced hers, but it never seemed to matter to my parents. I told myself I didn't care, but deep down, it stung. One busy morning at Sweet Dreams Bakery, everything seemed ordinary, until Julie burst into the kitchen, waving an order form. "Boss, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "What's going on?" I asked, wiping flour off my hands. She handed me the form. "We just got a birthday cake order, and it's going to your parents' house." I froze, my heart pounding. "Are you sure?" I whispered. Julie nodded. "Your mom's name is on the form. There's even a note. It's for her birthday." A mix of emotions washed over me. Part of me wanted to cancel the order, but another part saw it as an opportunity. "Julie," I said, my voice steadying, "clear my schedule. This cake is going to be my best work yet." Over the next week, I poured everything I had into that cake. 3 tiers of Mom's favorite flavors, adorned with intricate sugar flowers and delicate decorations. It was the most beautiful cake I had ever created. As I worked, I imagined the moment. My parents' surprise, their pride, their recognition of what I had achieved. When the day of the party arrived, I showed up early with a small gift to keep up appearances. The house was packed with relatives I hadn't seen in years. "Emily," Aunt Karen exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "Still crunching numbers at the office?" I nodded with a tight smile. "Yep, still at it." I waited anxiously for my bakery's delivery. When the doorbell rang, Mom opened the door to a delivery driver holding a large, familiar Sweet Dreams bakery box. "Special delivery for the birthday girl," he said cheerfully. Mom blinked in surprise, then smiled. "Oh my, it looks incredible." She carefully opened the box, revealing the stunning cake. Gasps of admiration filled the room. "Who made this?" Mom asked, her voice filled with awe. The moment had come. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I did, Mom," I said softly. "This is my bakery's work." Her eyes widened as realization dawned. The room fell silent, and I braced myself for her reaction. The room fell silent as Mom placed the box on the dining room table and lifted the lid. Gasps of admiration rippled through the crowd, followed by murmurs of approval as everyone marveled at the cake's intricate design and delicate decorations. My heart pounded. This was my moment. I opened my mouth to explain, to finally tell them everything. But before I could speak, Dad cleared his throat. His voice was sharp, cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. "Before we celebrate," he began, "there's something we need to discuss." The chatter died instantly. All eyes turned to him, then to Mom, whose face was hard with disapproval. My stomach churned. "We've discovered something," Mom said, her tone icy. "A secret Emily has been keeping from us." My breath caught in my throat. Dad stepped forward, his voice dripping with anger. "Emily isn't an accountant. She's a pastry chef." The words fell heavy, like a slap. My cheeks burned, and I felt the weight of every gaze in the room. I tried to speak, to explain, but no sound came out. "You lied to us," Dad continued, his voice rising. "We worked so hard to give you the best opportunities, to make sure you had a real future. And this is what you've done with it?" Look at your sister. She's an executive at her firm, a real professional. That's something to be proud of. Lisa shifted in her seat, her eyes glued to the floor, but she said nothing. Mom jumped in, her words like daggers. We gave you everything, Emily. Everything. And this is how you repay us? By wasting your life as a cook. The word cook hit me like a blow. Didn't they see what I'd built? Didn't they understand the passion, the hard work, the love I'd poured into my business? But Dad wasn't finished. He strode to the table, grabbed the cake box, and, with one swift motion, flipped it over. My beautiful creation, the cake I'd spent days perfecting, crashed to the floor in a mess of frosting and crumbs. Gasps erupted from the crowd. We're not eating this, Dad said, his voice filled with disdain. It's beneath us. Mom nodded, her face hard. You've shamed us, Emily. You've chosen to disobey us and tarnish our family's name. This is the last straw. And then came the words that broke me. We disown you, Dad said coldly. You're no longer our daughter. Tears streamed down my face as I stood rooted to the spot, unable to move, unable to speak. I looked around the room, desperate for someone, anyone, to stand up for me. But no one did. Even Aunt Susan, who had always been kind to me, whispered to her husband. I always knew she'd cause trouble. Mom's voice was calm but final. Get out, Emily. Leave and don't ever come back. The weight of her words crushed me, but somehow I forced my legs to move. I walked to the door, tears blurring my vision. As I reached for the handle, I heard Lisa's voice, hesitant and soft. Mom, Dad, maybe we should. The door slammed shut behind me, cutting her off. I stumbled down the front steps, the house that had once been my home now feeling like a stranger's. By the time I got to my car, the sobs came in waves. Their rejection, their cruelty, the destruction of everything I had hoped to share, it all felt unbearable. But as I sat in the car, watching the sun dip below the horizon, one thing became crystal clear. I could never go back. The days after that party blurred together. I moved through them like a ghost, barely eating, barely sleeping. The bakery kept running thanks to my incredible team, but I felt numb. Slowly, as the initial shock faded, I found solace in my work. If my family couldn't see the value in my passion, I would prove it to the world. And I did. The bakery flourished beyond my wildest dreams. We opened a second location, then a third. Magazine features, TV spots, and even a cookbook deal followed. With every success, I pushed myself harder, determined to show what an ordinary cook could achieve. I bought a beautiful apartment in the city and built a life far away from the family who had cast me out. 3 years after that disastrous birthday party, I met Henry. He was kind, patient, and adored my baking. A year later, he proposed, and I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was intimate and perfect, filled with the people who had become my chosen family, friends, employees, and the supportive community I had built. Looking around at their smiling faces, I realized I didn't miss my blood relatives at all. Life was good. The bakery continued to grow, Henry and I built a wonderful life together, and I finally felt at peace. But closure, it seemed, had other plans for me. One Friday afternoon, I was reviewing plans for a new bakery location when my phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but something told me to pick it up. Hello? I answered. There was a brief pause, and then I heard her voice, my mother's voice. Hesitant, shaky, but unmistakable. Emily, please don't hang up. We need to talk. My heart raced. Mom? I said, my voice uncertain. Her words tumbled out in a rush. Your sister's company went under. She's lost her job, and she's been struggling for months. We need your help. Before I could respond, Dad's voice cut in, sharp and commanding. Emily, Lisa needs a job at your bakery. As the director. She has real business experience. She can run the place while you bake. The audacity of their request hit me like a punch. After years of silence, this was why they were calling? A bitter laugh escaped me. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice calm but firm. You want me to hand over the business I built from nothing to Lisa, the sister you always compared me to? The same sister you held up as the example of what I should have been? And I'm supposed to just fake? Dad's voice hardened. Emily, we're giving you an opportunity to fix things. To make things right with this family. I shook my head, my emotions a mix of disbelief and anger. You disowned me. You humiliated me. You destroyed my work in front of an entire room of people. And now you expect me to save Lisa? To save you. Don't be so dramatic, Mom snapped. We're family. I let out a slow, deliberate breath. No, Mom. We were family. I've built a new one that values me, respects me, and supports me. You don't get to come back into my life just because it's convenient for you. And with that, I hung up the phone. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice sharp and steady. You disowned me, threw me out, humiliated me in front of everyone, and now you're asking me to hand over my business to Lisa? We gave you life, my father snapped, his tone full of indignation. We raised you, gave you everything. You owe us. Something inside me cracked wide open, years of suppressed anger and pain rushing to the surface. I met his words with calm resolve. I owe you nothing, I said, my voice low but firm. You made your choice 4 years ago. I'm not your daughter anymore, remember? Just an ordinary cook. And I won't be helping you or Lisa. Goodbye. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling slightly. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the wall as the weight of it all sank in. Then, unexpectedly, a smile crept across my face. I felt lighter, like a burden I hadn't even realized I was carrying had finally been lifted. I owed them nothing. I was free. Just when I thought I had closed that chapter of my life, the universe threw me another surprise. On a quiet Monday afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, the number was one I recognized, Lisa's. A mix of curiosity and apprehension welled up inside me as I answered. Hello? Emily, Lisa's voice was soft, tentative. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. It's okay, Lisa. What's going on? What followed was a conversation that caught me completely off guard. Lisa apologized, earnestly and repeatedly, for how her parents had treated me. I didn't know they called you, she said, her voice filled with regret. I had no idea they asked for a job. I would never have let them do that. I'm so sorry, Emily. Her words softened something in me that I hadn't realized was still hardened. Thank you, Lisa, I said, my voice quiet but sincere. That means a lot. She went on to share how her life had unraveled after losing her job. It was a wake-up call, she admitted. I realized I've been living a life that wasn't mine, chasing goals that weren't mine. Banking, finance, none of it was what I wanted. It was always Mom and Dad's dream, not mine. I listened in silence, barely breathing as my seemingly perfect sister poured her heart out. Seeing you build your bakery, living your passion, it inspired me. Emily, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I've decided to follow my own dreams. I've enrolled in interior design courses. I want to create beautiful spaces and do something that truly makes me happy. Tears welled up in my eyes. For so many years, I had believed Lisa was living the life I should have had, effortlessly achieving everything I could only dream of. I never imagined she had been struggling under the weight of our parents' expectations, just like I had. That's amazing, Lisa, I managed to say, my voice shaky but full of sincerity. I'm really proud of you. There was a pause, and then Lisa said something that healed wounds I hadn't realized were still open. I'm proud of you, too, Emily. You stood up for yourself, followed your dreams, and built an incredible life. That's so inspiring. The tears came freely now. Years of hurt, anger, and longing melted away as we talked for hours. We shared everything, our fears, our regrets, our hopes. The distance that had stretched between us for so long felt like it was finally shrinking. As the conversation drew to a close, Lisa hesitantly asked, Do you think we could meet up sometime? Just talk, maybe support each other. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I'd like that, Lisa. I'd really like that. Over the following months, Lisa and I began meeting regularly. We'd sit in my bakery, sipping coffee and sharing pastries while reminiscing about old memories and laughing like we hadn't in years. I watched as Lisa threw herself into her new career, her enthusiasm for interior design shining through in every sketch and idea she shared. Her business began to flourish, and I couldn't have been prouder. Meanwhile, news of our parents reached us through distant relatives. Apparently, when Lisa left banking to pursue her dream, they disowned her too. One a simple baker, the other a frivolous decorator, they reportedly told anyone who would listen. Lisa and I shared a laugh over the absurdity of it all. The truth was, we no longer needed their approval. We were living our own dreams, building lives filled with meaning and joy. One sunny afternoon, as Lisa and I sat at the bakery over coffee, she glanced around at the bustling shop, taking in the happy chatter of customers and the rows of beautifully displayed treats. "You know," she said with a warm smile, "we turned out pretty great, all things considered." I laughed, warmth spreading through my chest. "Yeah, I agreed. I think we did." As I watched Lisa sketch new design ideas on a napkin, surrounded by the aroma of fresh pastries and the sounds of laughter, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. This was my life, imperfect and unpredictable, but undeniably beautiful. I had fought for my dreams, overcome challenges, and in the end, I had created something truly sweet.